The cafe hummed with the late evening buzz of the city, a low thrum of clinking cups, muted laughter, and the faint hiss of steaming milk. Outside, neon signs painted the windows with streaks of red and blue, but inside, the golden lamps softened everything into an almost cinematic glow. Clara Evans sat at a small corner table, her posture straight, her notebook tucked beside her like an extension of herself. At 24, she carried herself with the kind of precision that only comes from years of discipline, her dark hair tied back neatly, her pen tapping softly against her cup as if every sound and movement were part of a measured rhythm. Across from her, Ryan Cole slouched in his chair, a faint grin tugging at his lips as he strummed invisible chords on the table. He was all contrasts to her, reckless curls falling into his eyes, a worn leather jacket that smelled faintly of the stage, and a restless energy that seemed forever half a beat out of sync with the world around him. To anyone watching, they looked like opposites, yet there was an unmistakable charge in the air between them, a connection carved out of late nights, whispered dreams, and an unspoken belief that they could somehow balance each other's worlds. Tonight, though, there was a crack in that delicate balance, one that neither of them could ignore much longer. Clara leaned forward, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of nervous excitement. "I got the email today," she said, her fingers curling around the edge of her cup. "The fellowship, the one in Florence. I'm shortlisted." She searched his face for the kind of joy she had imagined, but Ryan's expression flickered, a faint shadow replacing the easy warmth in his eyes. He should have been proud of her. He knew how hard she had worked, how many nights she'd stayed awake drafting designs until her hands cramped, but instead, silence stretched between them. Finally, he laughed softly, but it carried no humor. "Of course you did. You always do. But Clara, Florence? That's not just an internship down the block. That's months away, maybe longer." She tried to smile, to soften the edge of what she had to say, but her throat tightened. "This is everything I've been working toward. If I get it, it could change my life." Ryan leaned back, his hands folding across his chest, as if bracing himself. "Funny timing, isn't it? Because I just got the call from Indigo Hall. They want me to open next month. This is it, Clara, my shot. The one I've been waiting for." His voice rose slightly, not angry but urgent, as if he were pleading with her to understand the weight of it. For a moment, the cafe noise blurred into the background, leaving only the sharp edge of their words hanging between them. The tension swelled like a cord held too long, neither willing to break it but neither ready to let it fade. Ryan leaned forward now, his eyes dark, the grin gone. "So what happens to us if you take this? You'll leave everything, including me, just like that, for your dream?" The words cut deeper than he intended, but he didn't take them back. Clara's breath hitched, her eyes glistening with something that wasn't quite anger, not quite sorrow. "And if I don't, I'll regret it forever," she whispered. "Is your dream worth more than mine?" For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other, both knowing the answer was tangled and unfair, that love was never measured in miles or applause or blueprints, but in sacrifices. And neither could bear the thought of giving up their one chance. The cafe door opened and closed, the draft ruffling the edge of Clara's notes, pulling her back to the present. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor, the sound harsh in the otherwise warm room. With trembling hands, she gathered her things, unable to meet his eyes. "I can't stay and pretend this isn't tearing me apart," she said, her voice cracking. And then she walked out, the bell above the door chiming faintly as Ryan sat frozen, watching her figure blur into the city night. He didn't call after her. He didn't move. He just sat there, torn between chasing her and chasing the dream that had finally come knocking. The cliffhanger wasn't in the words they left unsaid, it was in the silence that followed, in the unbearable weight of knowing love might not be enough to bridge the distance of two diverging paths. Clara Evans grew up in the kind of house where silence was often louder than words, where the absence of her father lingered in every empty chair and unpaid bill. Her father's sudden abandonment when she was just a child left her mother, Linda, scrambling to keep food on the table, patching together two jobs and endless late-night shifts. Clara, even as a little girl, learned quickly that stability couldn't be trusted to people, it had to be built with her own hands. While her friends played outside, Clara would sketch floor plans of imaginary homes, places where the walls never cracked and the roof never leaked, where love didn't walk out the front door and never return. Architecture, for her, became more than a career dream, it was her rebellion against chaos, her way of constructing permanence in a life that felt fragile. Her mother often looked at her with both pride and quiet worry, knowing her daughter carried a burden of responsibility too heavy for her age. Linda would say softly, "You deserve joy, not just success," but Clara would brush it off, determined, convinced that if she stopped building, everything around her would collapse. That drive carried her into university, into late nights with drafting paper and sleepless mornings with coffee, into awards and recognition that validated her sacrifices. Yet beneath her neatly organized notebooks and precise lines on tracing paper, there lived a lingering fear, that in chasing stability, she might be sacrificing her chance at love, at living fully. Ryan Cole's life had been painted in broader, louder strokes. Unlike Clara, he never had to worry about an empty fridge or the weight of unpaid bills. His family was comfortable, affluent even, but comfort came with its own shackles. His father, a polished businessman, and his older brother, Eric, a rising star in law, viewed music as little more than a hobby, something frivolous compared to real careers. Growing up, Ryan was constantly measured against Eric's achievements, his brother's sharp tongue always ready with a reminder, "When are you going to grow up and stop playing around?" But the more they pushed him toward law school, toward stability, the more Ryan resisted. Music wasn't just sound to him, it was oxygen, rebellion, a lifeline that proved he could carve out his own identity in a family that had already written his script. He poured himself into late-night jam sessions, dingy bars with faulty sound systems, and a stack of rejection emails that would have broken a lesser spirit. Each failure only sharpened his determination, even as it bruised his confidence. His family's dismissals cut deep, but Ryan masked the sting with charm and bravado, insisting that one day they would see his worth. Music was his declaration that he wasn't a shadow of his brother, that he wouldn't fold himself into a mold he never fit. Yet, in the quiet moments, when his guitar lay silent in the corner and the applause of a small crowd faded, Ryan sometimes wondered if they were right, if chasing this dream was just another way of failing. Now, in the present, Clara and Ryan's worlds converged inside a modest apartment, their love caught in the crossfire of ambition and exhaustion. The space bore the marks of their lives together, Clara's drafting papers stacked neatly on the coffee table, Ryan's guitar leaning against the wall, a stack of unopened bills shoved into a drawer. At night, Clara would come home late, her mind still spinning with deadlines and sketches, her laptop glowing until long past midnight. Ryan, meanwhile, drifted in and out of the apartment, juggling gigs that paid little, part-time jobs that drained him, and rehearsals that filled him with fleeting bursts of purpose. They still laughed together, still found comfort in each other's arms, but more often now, their conversations circled back to absence, Clara absent in her focus, Ryan absent in his instability. He wanted her presence, her faith in his dream, while she craved his understanding of the relentless pressure she carried. They loved each other deeply, but cracks began to show, resentments hidden under unspoken words, fears that neither wanted to admit out loud. Clara's mother's voice still echoed in her mind, reminding her not to lose her happiness, while Ryan carried the sting of his brother's contempt, hoping Clara wouldn't one day see him the same way. Their relationship was both anchor and storm, bound by love yet tested by the very dreams that had once drawn them together. And in the dim light of their small apartment, both silently wondered how long love could hold when ambition pulled them in opposite directions. The email came late in the evening, glowing at the top of Clara's inbox like a beacon. "Congratulations, you've been awarded the Paris Fellowship." Her heart hammered, her hands trembling as she reread the words, each sentence affirming years of sacrifice, long nights, and whispered promises to herself that all of it would be worth it. She wanted to run to Ryan, to tell him the good news, to celebrate the way she had imagined they would. But when she turned, she found him already leaning against the doorframe, a strange mix of excitement and unease etched across his face. "I got the call," he said, his voice hushed but brimming with restrained triumph. "The label showcase, next week. This is it, Clara. They want to hear me." For a moment, the room held both their victories, colliding like stars in the same sky. But as the weight of their news settled, the silence thickened. Paris meant leaving, next week, the same time Ryan needed her most. Two dreams, both fragile, both burning, both demanding presence. Clara's smile faltered. "Paris," she whispered, barely able to meet his eyes. "They want me there. Next week." The unspoken truth hung between them. They could not both win, not without tearing something apart. The pressure didn't just come from their own hearts, it came from the people who had shaped them. Clara's mother, Linda, sat at their kitchen table days later, her voice low but steady, carrying the weight of her own regrets. "Don't repeat my mistake, Clara. I stayed for love. I stayed because I thought your father was enough. And when he left, I had nothing. Don't give up Paris for anyone, not even Ryan." Clara wanted to argue, to say her love wasn't like her mother's had been, but the haunted look in Linda's eyes silenced her. Across town, Ryan faced his brother, Eric, whose words cut sharper than he intended. "You really think she'll stay? Come on, Ryan. She's smarter than you. Paris is her chance. She won't throw that away for some bar gig dressed up as a showcase." Ryan bristled, fists tightening at his sides, but the seed was planted. His own family had no faith in him, and now, even Clara's dreams seemed poised to prove them right. The voices of their families echoed in their ears, not as guidance, but as a drumbeat of inevitability. Clara's path was forward, Ryan's was uncertain. And in the shadow of those voices, love began to feel less like destiny and more like a tether slowly fraying. The argument came on the night before Clara's flight. Their apartment, once filled with laughter and music, now vibrated with the sharp edge of raised voices. Ryan's desperation broke through first. "Stay, Clara. Just this once, stay for me. Be at the showcase. I need you there." His words cracked like glass, raw and pleading. Clara's eyes filled, her voice shaking but resolute. "And if I stay, Ryan? If I stay and watch my dream slip away, what then? Will you hold me when I hate myself for giving it up?" Silence. Then Ryan's jaw tightened, his pride hardening into armor. Neither of them bent. Neither could. The next morning, Clara stood at the airport gate, her suitcase a symbol of the choice she had made. She looked back only once, half hoping he would come charging through the crowd, breathless, ready to fight for them. But Ryan didn't come. Pride rooted him where he was, watching the flight updates on his phone, staring at the number of her gate as if it might change. When her plane lifted into the sky, Paris bound, he whispered to himself, "Good luck, Clara," though the words tasted like ash. And in that moment, love bowed to ambition, leaving them both with victories that felt like losses. Paris was everything Clara had imagined: cobblestone streets that hummed with history, studios filled with brilliant minds, mentors who spoke of her talent with reverence. She dove into her work, pouring herself into designs that caught attention, sketches that earned praise, projects that stretched her creativity in ways she had only dreamed of. Yet, every triumph carried a shadow. Late at night, when the city lights shimmered on the Seine and laughter spilled from cafes, she felt the ache of absence. Ryan's absence. She scrolled through her phone, fingers lingering over their old photos, the easy smiles, the messy dinners in their apartment, the sound of his guitar filling the air. But when she opened her messages, she hesitated, unsure whether reaching out would heal or reopen wounds. At work, her colleagues admired her determination, her brilliance, One even snapped a candid photo of her presenting a design, later posting it online with the caption, "Genius at work." Clara smiled politely, but when she noticed Ryan had seen it, her stomach tightened. She could almost feel his hurt from across the ocean. For all the glory Paris gave her, there was an emptiness it couldn't fill. She had built her dream, yes, but at what cost? Each success felt slightly hollow, each late-night victory shadowed by the fear she had traded love for ambition, and lost something she could never get back. Back home, Ryan's life blurred into a cycle of late nights, half-empty bars, and endless rehearsals that never seemed to land him where he wanted to be. The showcase, his golden chance, had come and gone, leaving him gutted. He had poured every ounce of himself into that stage, only to be met with polite applause and a rejection that stung worse than silence. "You've got talent," they told him, "but not what we're looking for right now." The words haunted him, replaying in his head like a broken record. Each day that passed without Clara felt heavier, her absence feeding the doubts his family had always voiced, that he was a dreamer, not a doer, a shadow to his brother, a failure in waiting.